to another session where we're discussing infrastructure as code. I will be guiding you through building on the basic concepts that we've discussed in the previous sessions for Terraform or infrastructure as code. And in today's session, we will be discussing Terraform variables, outputs, and modular patterns. And this is what we use in the code to make your infrastructure code or configuration more reusable. So by now you should be familiar with the Terraform workflow, how you init, how you plan and you apply your configuration, and also how you destroy for cleanup. So trust that you've played around with that a little bit more. And so for this session, we will just build up on those principles that we had from previous session. So let's get into it. So from the previous session, as you remember, we did some hard coding, and I mentioned that I'm hard coding this AMI because we're not yet at the advanced stage. So this was just to do the example. So when we hard code values like a region or an instance type, so here we have the region, here we have instance type, then it makes our code less flexible. So imagine if you wanted to launch the same EC2 instance that we have in the example in a different region, then how much reconfiguration you have to do or duplication you would have to do. So you would need to copy and paste everything into new configuration files. But I'm going to teach you about variables, which solve the hard coding, which solves the issue of hard coding or prevents you from hard coding by allowing us to parameterize our code. So using parameters, it would be like giving your script blank values, and then you can fill them in on a later stage. Okay, so to use variables in, let's say, this one. Let me just refresh it again. Okay, cool. So to use variables in Terraform, you just need to follow a few steps. So first, what I'm going to do, as we know, we have the main TF and we have the versions TF. So versions where I'm just defining the Terraform dependency versions. And then in the main, this is where I'm describing the resources. Now you can apply your variables in one folder, in one file, as same as your main, right? So I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna do it here below. I'm gonna define a variable, just like that. So you define it like as a variable, and then you are expected to give it a name. So I'm gonna put the region into a variable, right? And it's just you first have to like define in this object, in this variable object, you define a default value for it. Mine is EU dash west dash one, right? And you can like maybe just put the type there. It's not bad. And the type is just the value type of the of this object that I'm creating. So that's coding, but I'm just it can be a string or a bool or a list, but I'm just doing a string over here. So it's to say that the value that I'm storing should be interpreted as a string. Okay, so I have that there, and now I can use this. Now I can just reference this variable instead of hard coding the region. So now I can say var.region. So my plugin just picks that up. var.region. So this just means that it's looking at the variable named region, and it's going to take the value from there. Right, the default value. If you don't have a default value, it's going to ask you to input it um, as you upon runtime, on runtime. Then you have to put it in like that. Right, cool. So so what I wanted to say is you can use it like this. Right, so what I'll just do is I'll do Terraform it so that it can just go and uh, did I save it? Actually, I didn't save it. So if I do a init, it just goes back and look at everything that I've done. So let me first save this and run a Terraform init, and it's gonna just look if there is any changes to the configuration. No changes because it's just a variable. So let's do a Terraform plan. Nothing is actually changing. So it should just say no changes. And that's essentially what it is. I'm not changing my config, I'm just parameterizing it. Okay, oh, I forgot. I did delete the existing one. So I'm not, it's working still. As you can see, it's initializing and looking at the plan successfully. So what I did, I didn't add a new resource. I'm just adding a variable and a region. So you can do variables like for these, you can put this AMI ID in a variable. You can put your T2 micro value in a variable. And this is just parameterizing your code so that you don't have to come through and change the value or change something in your code or in your main code every time. You can just change the value one time and then it will apply to it. That's the declarative model of using Terraform. So now, if you get to a point where you have to, the reason why I don't prefer that we write the resource and variable um, in the same file is because what if you then have to create a lot of variables? Then your code will start looking very messy and techy. So what I then advise is you can go to this folder where your main TF lives, and your version is there, and you add a new file, and you can call it variables .tf. So you like the names that you give your files is very arbitrary as long as you give it the Terraform extension. Terraform will use any file within the folder of the state that you're trying to deploy, and it's gonna read all of those files. As long as you're making references to it, it's gonna use it. If you're not making reference to it, it's not gonna refer to it. It doesn't really matter. There are certain files that matters when you give it a name. We'll get to those later, but for now, like any of these names, this might as well have been ec2.tf and it would have still be fine. So the name is just an arbitrary thing as long as it has the TF extension. So what I'll do then, now that I have that variable file, I will um, I will come through here rather and put all my variables can be listed here. So I'm still using region here, right? And I will save all. Now I have a new file, and init is just to, and I'm doing it init just to say, look for changes, Terraform, sorry, Terraform, uh, look for any changes to my backend if you find any, and it won't find any, so it will just run successfully. And once it's done with the initialization, when I say Terraform plan, it will look at what is different from the current state and then give you the value of the outputs. And if there was anything wrong with what I just did, it would have failed, but it's still working the same. It's still showing me that it can see that I just want to add one, um, one resource. And once I apply it, it's gonna apply, no issue. I can say Terraform apply, and we give it some time to just apply. And after I input the value yes, to say yes, I'm okay with what you're trying to create, it's just gonna start creating and creating, and in a short space of time, it will provision my resource, and then nothing has changed. Everything is still working fine with my code. So I'm basically just parameterizing this so that it can be reusable, because that's the aim of infrastructure as code. We don't want to do a lot of manual stuff. We don't want to copy and paste. So for each EC2 instance, we don't want to copy this whole folder and say, okay, another EC2 instance. But if I have parameters, if I have variables there, it can depending on how you code it, they can just apply the same state to different environments, to different, doing the same resources to different environments. Right? And I do a Terraform state list, and it shows I have a, in the state, I have a EC2 instance, named example. There we go, right here. Okay, so nothing breaks in my code. Um, there are also different ways that you can implement variables. So file, .tf file is one, and then at runtime you can use just a dash var um, tag in your command line, or you can use tfvars. Those the tfvar files, but those are like more advanced examples of parameterizing your code. Okay, cool. Uh, so earlier I did mention that you can add like a type. There are different types of strings, so that is just a way that Terraform interprets your variables. Right, so there are three main types of variables. There is string, the one that I'm using here. This is for any text value that you are inputting. So me saying EU West 1, that's a text, that's a direct text value for Terraform to read. They can be numeric values, and though that would be like a number. So if you know the count, if you like later on, or I think in your one of your labs you did a count to create multiple instances, that is a numeric value. So if you know you're just going to put a direct one, that is a count, that is a number value, and then there's the list and map, which is a bit more advanced where you use like multiple values. So in this list, if you're trying to get Terraform to read values from a list, and the list can be of type string or of type number, and then mapping is just hard-coded values of existing properties in your code platform that you can just link directly um, to your variable. So we keep our variables then in this TF file, this variables.tf, and we keep any other values in terraform.tf so that's a specific name. It just helps with the reusability and organization of your code. So the next one that we get to use is outputs. Um, so outputs is just another way we can use what already exists in a state in a different place. Now, say you you provision a database, for example, and you need to reuse it, like the ID name or you're referring to it in your instance, just for it because it's deployed by Terraform, and you're also going to deploy the next dependent or the next resource that uses your database with Terraform, then you can just link it to output values and say, this resource already exists in Terraform, just use it, and then you can directly point to the output name that you have specified. Hope that makes sense. So let's do an example. I will add outputs .df here. And what I will do here is just I'm going to say for the EC2 instance. Like first, let me destroy this one. Actually, Terraform uh, destroy. So I'm gonna destroy this one so that I can come back, create it with output, and that output you'll see that it will just recreate this whole thing using our output. Yeah, so I'm happy with uh, the one resource that it's restoring, but don't forget to read and confirm when you run a destroy that it is destroying the exact one that you want to destroy, so that it's doing the right things, right? So any one of these variables can be marked as an output. Let's say you create your EC2 instance and you just want to get the IP back or the EC2 instance DNS or the ID of the instance, you want to get that back. Here's the ID. So any one of these can be an output that you request from Terraform. Just give me that output, right? And it will store it in the state. Uh, and then you can integrate it with your other tools. Right. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just simply ask output upon creation, please output um, the instance ID. And it should actually recognize that, but it's on its own mission today. But okay, so you just need to put a value there. Value AWS. I'm going to refer to it directly in my main. There's a AWS, like you can see, it even recognize it. There is a AWS instance named example, and when you build it, I want the ID back. That's essentially what I'm saying here. But you see, there's like a variety of things that you can, values that you can ask back as an output, and it will store it, and you can reference it in your in with other tools and in your debugging wherever you want to see it. Alright, so this will be your output, and I'm just asking for that one, and I'm gonna say all. And now that I have nothing in my state, I will run Terraform apply. There's nothing to initialize. The backend didn't change. You run a init every time the backend changes. Um, and you run a plan if you just want to store the plan. But ultimately with the apply, it does a plan on its own. You look at it like this. This is your plan. And it says it's going to create a resource. And then it says I'm going to add one resource, and you are happy with that. And then it's also saying this is the output that you will get. That is changes the output. That's a new value. And then once it's done creating um, this resource, it will then give us back that instance ID output that we asked for. Okay, let's give it some time. After 25 seconds, that gave us something back here. Edit and then output instance ID. There we go. That is the new instance ID that we have. We can even verify. I have 77F there, and in my console, uh, the newly created instance that I have. So that was the one I destroyed just a moment ago. And there we go, 77F. That is just to give it to you on the terminal, and you can use it in other tools for integration. Okay. So one thing that we did speak about, mention was modularization. So I just need to talk about Terraform modules. They are like the foundational blocks of Terraform. A module is in programming, a module is known as a reusable uh, piece of code. So the same with Terraform, because we're putting infrastructure in code, so we understand that a Terraform module is also a reusable piece of code that you can plug into your project. You can create the module to launch a EC2 instance and then reuse that module in multiple environments. So you create the EC2 instance for dev, you will create the instance for staging, the same for prod, either or, right? And that for that, just to prevent, the tardiness of copy pasting the resources, the resource templates, resource modules over and over again, you use a piece of code that can be written once and then um, deployed throughout or every time. So here's how you use a module, right? So here we have our main EC2 instance where we have our parameterization set up. Now we will just let me just we will just create a folder separate and we will name it modules. And in that module, we will have just a piece of code to create a EC2 function. Right? So it will be different from this one. Actually, this one can also be modularized, but we're just building it from scratch so that you can get some context on what's actually happening. Okay, so in modules, let's create um, in the module folder, let's create a file. Sorry, in modules, let's create a folder. So I'll keep all my modules here. I'm just organizing uh, my code. So, come now. So here, uh, I will create a folder in there. And this one we will call EC2, right? And in EC2, in this EC2 folder, we will create another main.tf and we will create also again, we will create variables.tf. Um, we can also create the outputs.tf. Okay. So after we create all these files, this will be now referred to as our root configuration. So here we will uh, we will create we will refer to it as a module, right? Because we're creating a module, and let's say it's a web server, and in this object we will create the source. Now this source is pointing to where it is getting uh the the configs from, right? Because we this is just so that we avoid the repeatability. This means we have a module that is referring using an existing piece of code, a function somewhere else. So this source is going to say in this directory, in this exact directory where we are, go and go one step up. If you go one step up, it's modules, and then another step up. Another step up. Okay, so one step up is EC2 actually. You are is in the EC2 folder, and then another step up, you are in the modules folder. And then in the modules line, now you can see in the modules line, I see EC2, right? And then under EC2, there is a V1 folder. That now I'm just telling it specifically, that is where you will find uh, the config for the resource that I am trying to use. So essentially, I'm referencing this existing module, this existing config that I've created, and I'm using it in different. This can be a different environment. So I'm saying EC2. It can be EC2 dev as well, but I'm going to now use that exact config so that I can deploy a resource. Okay,
Input.
so I
So
can just use it clean as it is because that's hard coded. So file, let's just do a basic one. And let's save all of that. I'm gonna destroy again. I have destroyed that existing one again, so you can see like here it just terminates it. Um, like in case you have like you just want to make sure that it's not terminating it and then you're running a build on AWS. But okay, terminated it and we can go back and what we will just do is we're going to use the module. So that means I need to be in this folder, right? This module folder because that's what I want to run. Okay, so just no variables per se, just the main one. And I can say save, and I can say Terraform init. Actually, just plan. Okay, yes, init. and you see it's initializing modules here, and it's looking at the source that I am attaching to the module. So now this module exists within the state, right? So okay, that's why I need to do it, not if the backend changes. Okay, so it's successfully initialized again, and now we can see it created a module which you can use, right? So now Terraform, just a simple plan. I'm not gonna apply it again. It's not cost effective if you're not on free tier, but Terraform plan, um, this will just go and do the same thing. But notice that I am in a different um, folder. I'm in the modules folder. I'm running it as a module, right? So this, you can see it does the same thing. It's gonna apply the same exact EC2 instance, but I'm applying it from different. So here I'm using much less code. So I'm not. I only wrote the EC2 um, the EC2 config once, and now I can repeatedly use it. So now I can say this is my dev. I can say I'm creating an EC2. This is my dev, and then I probably have a different folder for a different module for for pod, and you can just apply the same thing and use less code. Maybe just throw variables, obviously. So you probably don't want you probably want a different instance type in dev than in pre, or in pre than in pod. So you just need to vary put like a, and obviously like if it's different regions as well, you're gonna have to use different AMIs and stuff like that, right? So here, this would look like this, right? So I can just go into variables and I create a different variable. I'm just gonna copy paste this one here, and I can call this AMI, and I don't have to put the default value for AMI here, right? Because I can actually just say default, and it will equal blank like that, and then I'll specify it there. And I can do another one here, and the other one would be instance type, right? So now I'm just making sure that it's parameterized properly. So this can be instance dot underscore type, and I mean you can just put T2 micro there as a default value. Like if you don't populate it in your module, it will take this as a default value. And now that I have this, I go to my main config and I say, okay, that profile is fine. I don't wanna. I say variable dot AMI, and I can say variable dot instance type. Yeah, Visual Studio already knows what I'm talking about. So there, right? So that means in my module, I can come through here, and now I can say instance type, just accept it. Instance type, and I can be specific because there I'm in a, so it can be a T3 dot micro if that's a thing, or T3 sorry, T2 medium, which is, different from what we have there. And we can say, we can use the same AMI, right? We can use the same AMI, which, let me just fetch it. Okay, got it. Same AMI, and that is the ID. Okay, here we go, the ID for that. So when I save it, save all, um, We can actually initialize this because we have to we change the module itself. So it's gonna look at the module again. And let's give it a moment. And then we can Terraform plan after that. And this is just for the one module that we are running, right? So now I've changed the value. I'm not doing a micro anymore. I'm doing a medium. Right? So we can look at it. What is it doing? There we go. It's giving me a medium. So um, this can be referred to as um, the child code for your Terraform, and then this will be the parent, right? So parent can have any parent can have many children. So everything that you write then for this config will be considered a parent, and this one child is a T2 medium. I can create this for prod, and then for pre I create a different one, and then that just makes sense. Right? So now you don't have to touch this one after you wrote it once. You can see like you parameterized it and you don't have to touch it anymore. Now you can just come through here and put in values for your resource, and it can be different depending on the environment that you are using, and that is how you do it easily. Cool. In summary, variables let you, so here we've created variables. So variables let you customize your infrastructure as code. And then we also add the outputs, which help you get info after deploying your infrastructure. And then we created modules here, which is just to allow you to reuse your code and keep things clean in your parent code. In the next session, we'll look at Terraform backends and remote state storage, and this will allow you to collaborate on infrastructure as a team and allow you to be able to, well, just be more remote with your code. Okay, that's it for this section. A bit lengthy as well, but I guess infrastructure as code has a bit of weight to it, so I think the next few will also be a bit lengthy, but you're doing good if you finish this section of this video, and I hope you understand. Feel free to post all questions in the chat, and we can collaborate on fixing issues or addressing any problems. Okay, till next time. Bye.